Do you find, Nathan, the drugs are everywhere?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Most of my drug dealers came from the rich white neighborhood. They got all the best pills from their parents.
That's how they started? Was that their gateway? Or is it continuing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
All right, Nathan.
Yeah.
You go to a drug overdose call. A guy calls and says, I don't know what happened. I think my girlfriend's having a seizure. Seizure is drug term for they just OD'd on heroin.
Okay.
They always call and say a seizure because they think they're going to get in trouble. They think the cops are going to arrest you.
Right.
Just tell us it's a drug overdose.
Let me ask you this question. Is it if somebody ODs on heroin? I've never OD'd on heroin.
Yep.
Nathan, maybe you know this. When you overdose on heroin, do you have a seizure? Does your body twitch?
Well, probably, but the heroin just feels so good. It's just so good in your veins. You think you're just going to take a little nap.
Right. Yeah. Dale, is there a similarity between an overdose and a seizure physically?
Well, people who have like seizures that are kind of a lot of times their body is tightening up and they might be flailing violently on the floor or something like that. With a heroin overdose, you just kind of go from talking to unconscious and then to not breathing.
Oh.
So, okay. I mean, is there a few seconds in between? I've never seen that. Could a medical professional tell me, oh, yeah, they go into a seizure state for about 10 seconds, but most people don't see it.
Okay. So you're saying that this is just pure...
They say it because they're afraid that the cops are going to arrest them.
Okay.
So we got Nathan on the call. He rolls into the house. There's a lady down. She's not breathing. You see a hypodermic needle coming out of her arm. How are you going to handle that situation? Who would you call for backup? How would you do it? Medical aid?
I'll probably call for medical aid.
Yep.
That seems right. I'll get the information of what was in that needle, home slice. We're all chill here, fam. What were y'all partying with?
Wow.
I doubt she's just diabetic and you're giving her a dose of insulin.
You sound just like somebody from the Mod Squad.
That's actually a pretty good approach because a lot of times when you go in there and you start yelling and screaming at people, they become defensive. And if you want them to help you, I wouldn't say those exact words, but that tone of voice works with me. It's a good tone of voice.
You like that tone of voice?
I like it.
It sounded like there were 2 heroin overdoses.
All right, Dave. What about you? How would you handle it?
These days, it depends. If I'm in a Narcan community, I've probably got Narcan. So
every community's Narcan. Every cop has Narcan. Okay. Firemen have Narcan. Even drug addicts are given Narcan.
All right. Well, now that you've told me that he adopted the right approach, I'm going to go in with a very soft approach. I'm going to try to gain the cooperation of everybody. See what happens when you go second. There's the advantage. But then I'm also going to basically use the Narcan to save the life and then call medical.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you would do is you can give as much Narcan as people have gotten 3 or 4. It's like an inhaler. It's a spray inhaler right up the nostril. I've seen people get 3 or 4 of those sprays within a few minutes and come back, whereas some people get 1 and come back out of it. Some people get 4. Some people get 5 and don't come back out of it.
How about this?
Yes.
The person on the ground in the scenario, the woman, give her more heroin. maybe the new heroin that goes through her system
better heroin
will fight the heroin that caused the overdose, and she'll just come full circle back to consciousness.
There you go. It's a good one.
He sounds like the Beatles during one of their phases in the mid-60s.
Well, he's very close because that call in particular, they gave the lady Narcan.
Okay.
She snapped out of it. It's weird. They go from like not breathing to looking blue and grayish. You give them some Narcan, they pop right out of it. 5 minutes later, they're talking to you. 5 minutes after that, they're walking around. So that's what it was. 5 minutes later, she was up and going, and 10 minutes later, she was walking around. She refused to go to the hospital, and the guy that was with her, he just didn't say anything, but he sat there and, yeah, she's fine, I'll take care of her. It's not a good idea not to go to the hospital because sometimes the Narcan will wear off, and that heroin will cycle through your system again, and then you'll die from it half hour later. But in this case, how this went down was the lady stayed, they brought her back. An hour after that same lady called and said, my boyfriend, the guy that was at the house an hour earlier, the guy who called initially, he used the same heroin, which is a no-no. If you're doing heroin, if me and Nathan are doing heroin and Nathan does the heroin and he passes out and he dies, guess what? That heroin is laced with something or the purity of that heroin is so high it killed Nathan. So would I take it? Should I take it?
Yes,
no.
you would.
But
Yes,
he
you
took
would,
it.
'cause you know why? Because you don't learn.
Yeah.
You
So
don't
he
learn.
took the heroin. He shot up the heroin. But unfortunately for him, she waited about a half an hour. What they do with heroin overdoses.
Why did she wait? Why did she
Well,
wait?
I think she must have dragged him into the bathtub, and they think that it's kind of like a street medics. They think if you're on a heroin overdose, you can put someone in a tub and put them in cold water, and they're going to snap out of it.
Oh.
You see that often. A lot of
Okay.
times
Really?
people. Yeah,
Does it ever work?
No, cold water.
I don't know.
Not heroin. It's not
I
going to
don't know.
counteract.
I don't do
if you get
heroin.
punched in the face, Dave, and you get knocked out, and they put some ice, or, on your neck, and that'll wake you up. But no, heroin, you need medical attention. Cold water ain't going to help you. So they found the guy. He was in the bathtub, but he was dead because he had stopped breathing a half hour ago. So no Narcan or anything's going to bring him back. So the moral of that story is, like I said, if you're doing heroin and your buddy takes a shot and he dies, don't use the same heroin. Go buy some new one.
You don't.
Go buy another one.
You don't think that the moral of that story might be don't do heroin?
Well, yeah, don't do heroin. That's the first one. But unfortunately, heroin addicts, they're so addicted that this guy sees his girlfriend almost die from it, and he takes the same heroin because he's so addicted to it.
Right.
The power of the heroin, the high is so great.
That's amazing. And I'm guessing, and I don't know as much about heroin addicts as you two do, but I'm going to guess that he probably. I mean, don't people take heroin together?
Well, yeah, I mean, you'll see a lot of people doing it together. Yes, you will.
And so probably she probably took it. She probably had an immediate bad reaction to it.
And he called because
he called because he hadn't done it yet.
He hadn't done it yet.
If he had done it then at that time, they both would have died.
Now, I've been to heroin overdoses where there have been two people right on top of each other in the bathroom, died of heroin overdose. Yeah,
Horrible.
So
And I know a lot of cops. And I know when Narcan came out, I talked to a couple of cops, and they said they didn't like it because it gave the addicts the feeling that they didn't have to get clean, that if push came to shove, somebody would come along and save them with Narcan.
But Narcan I don't know what the statistics are of how often Narcan will save you, but I've seen people get 6 doses of Narcan and still die. So it's
they
not a
have.
cure-all.
Yeah.
It's not a cure-all.
mean, it's-
Nathan, it's not a cure-all.
Not a cure-all. Stay away from the bad horse. Stay away from the bad horse, dude.
All right, I got another one coming up.
All right. I think they called him Man back in Mod Squad days. It was horse. Heroin was horse. Is it still horse? Is heroin still called horse?
Probably.
Probably. No, it's not.
Unknown
It's not.
situation call.
All right.
This is going first to you, Rattigan, because you're not going to ride off of Nathan's coattails on this one. Many times cops are sent to just a generally unknown, you have no clue what you're walking into. So you're walking into someone from out of town, calls the police station and says, hey, could you send a cruiser over to my elderly parents' house? We've been trying to call them for the last couple of days. No answer. We called a neighbor. The neighbor says that there's a couple of days of newspaper on the front doorstep and there's some mail in the mailbox.
Okay.
You go to the call. How do you handle it? What are you looking for initially?
This one I might actually know.
Okay.
The first thing I do is I call for backup
Yeah, absolutely.
because
They'll send you back up usually.
okay, yeah, they send 2 cops and the idea is just in case there's something unusual,
Yep.
you get 2 guys. I actually do this in my act. I've got a real story about a wellness check, and so they send 2 cops on the wellness check, and this is just the setup of the joke is that you try the front door, you try the back door, then you have to find another way in.
Yep.
And one guy goes in, or one officer goes in, and then lets the second officer in. So that's what I do. And should I do more? Is there more that's required of me in this case?
Well, let's see if Nathan can kind of cipher a little more information out of this. How would you handle this, Nathan? Dave's answer right now is so far so good.
So far, you have checked the front and back door, no way in, and so you've tried like another way in.
Right. And let's say in my case, they found in the specific case that I've got, they found a bathroom window.
Okay.
And one of the cops went through the window.
So if this is me, once I'm inside the house, I'm gonna
Burgle
yell out, Marco! And if I don't get a polo, then I'm going to investigate further.
Okay.
Because they might not have their hearing aids in.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so far so good, you guys. That was good. You already had the information coming in that they're probably not home. But one thing you would usually do is you would usually see if there's any cars in the driveway. And if the family member said, hey, my parents own a 1995 Nissan, and you saw a Nissan, now you conclude that the car's there, newspapers haven't been taken, mail's in the mailbox, more likely than not, they're home. All right, so we just did that. Now, if it's the middle of summer, which this was, it happened to be the middle of summer, if they were dead in there for a couple of days, a lot of times what you'll see flies on the windows. I've been to calls before, and the windows are covered, kind of like a horror story.
Covered?
With flies. So that's one huge clue that someone is more likely than not deceased in there. All right, the officer didn't see that on this situation. This particular one has two endings, okay? One being somewhat comical, and it kind of goes with your joke. They went to the house, same type of call. The officer went in the bathroom window, and he was a short guy, a little stocky. He fell in, his gun fell out, and he looked up, and there was an old guy, and it had a gun. An old guy had a gun. See, the old guy didn't want to talk to his family members. He doesn't always get his mail. He doesn't always get his newspapers. He was kind of a recluse.
And he thought that it was a good idea to pull a gun on a cop?
Well, he didn't know someone was breaking into the house, plus he's elderly.
Okay.
So that call could have gone really bad. Could have gone really bad for both. Could have gone bad for the cop.
And it could have
gone bad for the elderly man, because if this happened just recently, they did a well-being check. They went into the house, and the cop got into a shootout with the elderly gentleman and killed him because it was on a well-being check. He was a little senile. He thought someone was in the house breaking in, but it was a cop.
Oh, that's
all right, so it can go really bad. I've been to those calls before, but this situation in particular was the cops looked a little further, and in the back door, there was that little hazmat sign. People had wrote it. And what they did was said, do not enter hazardous materials. And the officer saw that and backed off real quick. They shut down the whole neighborhood. They called the hazmat team. And what they did was the elderly gentleman, it was like a murder-suicide. They mixed up some cleaning solutions, put it into their bedroom in a bucket, and they asphyxiated each other.
And so it was a warning.
That was a warning. Because if you had walked into that house, it was very recent. I thought it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe in Burlington, Mass. There was a manager of a restaurant who was cleaning the floor, and they mixed chemicals to clean the floor, and he died from the inhalation of the fumes.
Wow.
So, but people use that for suicidal tendencies. A lot of times when they do that, they put the hazmat sign on because they don't want the first responders to get hurt. Because you open that door, you're going to go down just as quick as they did.
I think this is what happened in my story. It was a wellness check. The cop went through the window, and the cop from inside, very similar to yours, the cop down to the ground hears a kerplunk from inside the house.
Yep.
And he's like, what's going on? And the guy in the window says, my gun slipped out of my holster and fell on the toilet. and the guy on the ground says, quit shooting the shit and come open the door.
There you go. That was good. That was good. I think both of you was great.
Oh, I can't believe you're giving him points for this.
Well, I got Dave up 3-2.
All right. Well,
you know something? I know, because this is Nathan's wheelhouse right here.
Oh.
And this is the age of consent. All right, the age of consent.
This is something he studied.
Do you guys know the age of consent? I'm not going to tell you it, but do you think you know it? When I say age of consent, when can someone legally have sex with another person? I'm not going to tell you if you're right or wrong.
Well, it depends on,
in this country?
In this country, yeah. Well, actually, in this state. How will we go with Massachusetts?
Oh, in this state?
But they're all relatively the same. Okay. All right, well, let me give you the scenario first.
Yeah.
But this is a good one for you.
But it also depends on how old the other party is, right? Like if you're a 15-year-old boy and you have sex with a 15-year-old girl, you're okay.
Yeah.
In fact,
we're going ahead.
You'll probably be elected class president.
Yeah, there you go. All right, this is right up your alley.
All right.
I know you don't have a son, but for this scenario, you have a son.
Excellent.
Your 17-year-old son's in his room. He's all upset. You walk in, you say, what's wrong? And he starts crying. And
this is Nathan's, right?
No, this is you.
Oh.
You have the son. No, Nathan's up next. Up next.
I thought, all right, good.
All right.
I thought I got the last question, so you get the next one.
This is right up your alley.
Fine, all right.
The 17-year-old son's crying in his room.
All right.
You being the concerned parent.
What's the matter, son?
And he cries and says, I had sex with my best friend's mother.
Congratulations.
42-year-old married lady
Ooh.
having sex with a 17-year-old kid. Wow. You're upset.
Yeah,
You're
why
pissed
not
off
me?
because you weren't having sex with her. You're pissed off. You call the police. You're all upset. You're telling the cops that you're heading to the house. You're pissed off. The cops send a couple of crews.